Now, despite the adverse impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy, Tanzania's foreign direct investment levels apparently did reach the $1 billion mark in 2020. That is the highest level in at least 5 years. That's according to data from the World Investment Report 2021. It's published every year by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. The country saw at least $1.01 billion of FDI flowing into the country in 2020. That's higher than the $991 million recorded the year before. Now, the last time the country reported over $1 billion in FDI flows was back in 2015. The figure then was $1.6 billion. After that, however, they fell by nearly half to $864 million in 2016. In 2017 and 2018, the country saw around $938 and $980 million in FDI coming into the year every year. Year on year, Tanzania was reported to be the country that led with the highest increase of FDI flows in the East African region. Other countries suffered adversely from pandemic-related issues. All right, then, so that data does look interesting, but let's dig a little deeper into it, shall we? Let's explore the data coming out of Tanzania with Constantine Manda. He's the Inaugural Director of the Impact Evaluation Lab at Tanzania's Economic and Social Research Foundation, and he joins us on the program right now. Thank you for your time this evening. So FDI flows in Tanzania, relatively speaking, they're quite stable in 2020, despite the pandemic. But where was this money going? What were people investing in?
So it's not clear, given that we don't have all access to the data. You know, the central bank, the Bank of Tanzania, hasn't yet released the kind of latest details on where some of this foreign direct investment may be. But there are two possible sectors of the economy where we can speculate where they could be going. So the first is infrastructure. As you know, President Magufuli's administration from 2015 to 2020 really focused on infrastructural development. So the bus rapid transit system, roads, electrification, and several other infrastructural projects. The second area where this could possibly be going to is tourism. We've seen recently an influx of tourism within the last 12 months, in particularly of 2020, from countries that traditionally weren't the biggest givers of tourists to Tanzania, including, for example, countries like Russia, which we have been seeing. And there are stories and anecdotes that you hear in Zanzibar and elsewhere in Tanzania of investors also coming in from the African diaspora in the United States, for example. So African-American investors are also coming in to start to get some of the investment in tourism industry as well.
So from 2016 onwards, FDI flows in Tanzania fell significantly. In fact, on a year-on-year basis, 2016, 2015, they fell by almost half compared to the $1.6 billion in FDI in 2015. Was this a direct result of the policies that were being pursued at the time by the country's president, John Magufuli?
It is possible, perhaps, that it is due to the Magufuli administration, and in particular, the President John Joseph Magufuli, the late president of Tanzania. But there are two kind of important caveats to consider when thinking about whether we can attribute the decline to the Magufuli administration or to other factors. I think the first is to notice that as a percentage of GDP, FDI has actually been declining since 2013. I mean, it's been fluctuating up and down before then, but the downward trend really began before the Magufuli administration came to power in 2015. And so if you think of it as a matter of, you know, as the economy is growing, Tanzania has recently in 2019 become a middle income country according to the World Bank classification of income across countries. And so, you know, as a percentage of GDP, there isn't necessarily anything special about the Magufuli administration. I think the second caveat to think about is the composition of investors that are coming in with this FDI, right? So the traditional kind of investors from the West aren't necessarily going to be the same ones that came in with the Magufuli administration, given the kind of pivot away from kind of human capital investments directly, but, you know, investing in hard infrastructure and roads and in building, and having desks coming into the classrooms, electricity to rural areas. And so we're seeing, you know, investors from Turkey, from China, from Kenya and other African countries coming in. And so the composition of the investor pool, I think, is also something that we would need to unpack once we start to get some of the figures particularly between the first administration of the Magufuli administration and the current President Samia administration.
Indeed.
The other thing to also consider, obviously, is also that since President Samia has come to power, she's made remarks that are very pro-investment. So one of the issues that have been raised by investors in the past is that it's very difficult to hire and fire workers, especially if you're trying to hire foreign workers. And so President Samia has gone out and explicitly said that that kind of demeanor of being anti-international staff is going to change in her administration. And so that, I think, is also going to be good news for investors.
Okay, we'll leave it there for the time being. Should be interesting to pass that data a little later on once we do get our hands on it. Constantine Manda, thank you very much.